Good morning. It is 8:30. It is the 13th day of December, the last day of Jingle Jam. Vlogmas still sort of going strong. I skipped yesterday because I just decided to rest. But anyways, it's me, your grumpy guide to all things gaming, the OG GM, doing laundry. As always, the never-ending battle that is laundry. So, this whole Ginni D character wrong thing is still going on, and it has been going on way too long, probably because of the way Mrs. D chose to phrase the verbiage in her video. Now, because I like to play both sides of an argument, because I understand both sides of the argument, even if they got carried away, I think we need to understand that the fact that Mrs. D chose to run a Warlock and then played a Warlock against type, and when you look at the way she describes the character, you're like, that's not really a Warlock. That's really maybe a Cleric or a Sorcerer? But whatever. Unfortunately, of all the classes in 5e, the one that singly most is just built to be optimized, and everybody has a sort of very specific preconceived notion, is Warlock. Now, I have pretty much 90% of the characters I've played in 5e are Warlocks. I don't know why, they're very simple. They're one-trick ponies, so if you need to make a character really quickly, and you kind of just like, whatever. It's a good character because it does one thing. It does one thing very, very well, and that one thing allows you to experiment because it's got all the other tricks, I mean, you've got the what does my patron give me stuff, and you've got the what are my invocations give me stuff, and then you've got the spells. But if there's any class in 5e, it is this class. Now, I don't know why Warlock is in 5e. I mean, it's really sort of an unnecessary class. That said, let's face it, Warlock is built really to be one thing, a glass cannon. It's either you go for the Eldritch Blast build and focus around Eldritch Blast and then use the invocations to add a little tricks to your character and flesh them out. But you're very limited in spells with the Warlock, so you might as well pick the spell that is, lets you do the single-handed largest amount of DPS, single target damage there is. I mean, you're starting at a D10 damage at first level. Nobody else gets that except for maybe a fighter if he picks up a D10 sword. And then you can add your charisma bonus to that if you pick the invocation, and you can just keep going with that. So yeah, Warlock is pretty much, that's your thing, glass cannon. Or you take the shadow sword, hex blade, whatever it is, build, and then you're glass canneling with your mystic spooky lightsaber. But still, it's your one thing, is like blah blah blah, wham 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 wham, and then you flavor it up with the tricks, and then you add the role playing with the tricks. Now, I've tried to play Warlocks against type. Doesn't really work. I've been in games where people played Warlocks against type. Doesn't really work. They get very frustrated because, well, you're so limited to spells and you're so limited to things, especially if you go out of type. So I understand the argument that she met and the slack that she met, and I understand that you're dealing with a group of individuals, D&D players, who get very passionate about their sport, their hobby. And if you do something that goes against the way they think it should be played, they get very upset, especially when there's no repercussions. Because, well, I'm complaining about a video. You can't do anything to me. You're on the under end of this screen. What's the worst you're going to do? Is respond to my comments with your comments? I'm completely safe, so I can say and do whatever I want because I'm a privileged gamer who thinks they know better. The other problem was that people were applying preconceived notions of the game to 5e. And by her choices, there's nothing in the rules that say Ginni D couldn't do what she did or why she did it. There's nothing on the paper that says that. She chose to make a very role-playing specific, going against type character. Unfortunately, she chose a class that most people have a very preconceived notion of, and a lot of people, especially it seems herself, have a very preconceived notion of how previous editions of Dungeons and Dragons were played. That, everybody was optimizing and none of us were role playing, which is completely and 100% not true. Whatever. Part of the reason I took umbrage with her choices was, first, the whole point of her argument, and the second, her very initial attack against old school players like myself, saying, well, just you optimize and you min-max and you play and I did it and you're upset because I didn't, and your way is not good and my way, whatever. And second is the whole thought pattern of, I played a character wrong. Which brings us back to, again, our original concept idea, which seems to be the number one thing I've been complaining about all year, is you didn't play a character wrong. As long as everybody else, including the DM at the table, agreed, that's the game we're going to play. But if everybody else at the table agreed, we're playing a very min-max, optimized, dungeon crawl, grinder, make the most effective character you can, and Ginni D showed up with this, I'm, unicorns and light rays, and I'm playing a warlock against class, and everybody else was like, dude, that character's not going to survive. You built that character wrong because this is what we all agreed to play. Then, yes, it was wrong. But if everybody at the table agreed, no, that's perfectly fine. We're telling a story. We're telling a creative story about creative problem solving, a living, breathing world. So if you want to build a warlock against type and make this whatever that Aishlin is, go ahead, because that's what we're all doing. Now, my personal experiences with this situation are exactly the same. So I can understand her frustration. I can understand the reaction I get. But to say build a character wrong is just really it grinds my gears. I'm sorry. It just does, because there's no wrong characters. If that's the character you're going to have fun playing, it's not wrong. There's wrong games, lady. Because, again, if everybody agreed to play one game and you bring a character that goes against that, then yes, that's wrong and you're going to get slack. Now, I've had personal experiences as a player dealing with that. I've had personal experiences as a DM dealing with that. I've had personal experiences as an observer watching other games that I didn't have any part in dealing with that. And again, it breaks down to two things. One, we are very passionate individuals, D&D players, role-playing players, and we're a little obsessive and we kind of expect things to go a certain way. I know I'm guilty of that. And several of my other D&D role-playing individuals in my community and around the world are like that. We get in that mindset. This is the game we're playing. We've all agreed on this, blah, 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 blah. And then if somebody shows up and goes against that, it can upset people. It's even worse if you're playing at like a store or a convention, because then you have no idea what people are going to bring to the table. So my personal experience with a UA min-max optimizer that showed up and just totally upset everybody at the table because everybody else was sort of playing like Miss D, more role-playing centric, more, I'm just going to experiment. I'm going to go against type. I'm just going to more tell a story. This is just I chose to tell a story with the framework of a fighter. Or I chose to tell a story with the framework of a rogue. Or I chose to tell a story with a framework, like herself, a warlock. And then this guy, this Travis, this min-max game breaker shows up and brings in this min-maxed ultimate optimization character, and everybody's just like first sort of upset because his character is doing all this weird shit, and they're like, what the fuck, is he cheating? And it turns out he was cheating, but that's besides the point. And second is because we sort of all agreed we're telling one story, and then you show up and try and just change our story and break this being this thing, and it's like you're upset because you're not getting to do what you wanted to do, and we're upset because you're trying to force this to go a different direction. And eventually it came down to, dude, I don't think my game's for you. Let me help you find a game that I think you will enjoy. Which he did, and it was fine. He found a game with other individuals who wanted to play that same style, and they're fine. And I've been in games where I wanted to create a purely role-playing, quirky against type character, and everybody else was like, no, we're doing this, and I was just like, oh god, I feel so frustrated. The very first 5th edition character I played was a warlock who went against type, and I didn't build around the whole pew pew pew. I built more of a role-playing I had this theme. It seemed like Warlock was the best character to do the theme with, specifically because of the certain spells I could see fitting the theme. And the character quickly was just like, yeah, this is all optimization, min-max. I mean, I still had fun with the character because I found interesting ways to build it. But eventually I was like, yeah, if I'm going to continue in this game, I need to build a character that fits more with what everybody else is playing. And I was recently in a game where I was playing, and everybody had sort of agreed we're playing optimized min-max grinder characters, and I was running this arcane trickster, and I was doing the booming blade backstab combination, and I'm doing all this damage, and everybody else is min-max, and then this one guy shows up, and strangely enough, he's playing a Warlock, and now I wonder if maybe he was influenced by Miss D, and he went against type, and he built a Warlock whose highest stat was a strength. He had an 18 strength Warlock, and a really low charisma because he was just sort of, this bodybuilder, entertainer Warlock. Now, why did he choose Warlock for his class? I don't know. Probably because he was influenced or whatever. But he built a Warlock against type, which was great. It was a fun character. He did fun, weird, strange things with it, like, trying to, using his gold to try and buy people off, and using his fact that he was a folk hero to try and, he played a very against type character. But when combat broke out, and all the rest of us were optimized for combat, and we were all, just doing what the game had built around, and he's just like, and we're like, well, just cast your Eldritch Blast. And he's like, I didn't take Eldritch Blast. And quickly it became, obvious that everybody was like, dude, we're spending 90% of our time trying to keep your character alive because you don't even bother you didn't take the one combat spell you have. And 2, you're not wearing any armor. I mean, let us at least buy you some armor. So I can understand this whole idea of how this happened to led to this video that she made, and the amount of response from old fucks like me who think we know what we're talking about, is she getting it. But it breaks down to one fallacy. There's no such thing as a wrong character. There's just the wrong game for your character. Now, I could go into the whole argument about session 0 and session 5 again, but I've done that enough, and I think you're tired of me talking about it. So this is probably the last I'm going to bring it up, unless Miss D wants to directly contact me. So, again, in closing, not all of us old school gamers played min-max. You shouldn't hold 5th edition players up to the microscope of every edition before 5th edition, because 5th edition is completely different, and most of the 5th edition players are completely different than us old guard players. 2, most of us old guard players didn't min-max. Most of us just played. We dealt with the situation. Oh, I've got a 7 strength. What am I going to do with that? That's the character I'm going to play for as long as I can play it, and I'm going to try and find new and interesting ways to play that character because that's what I'm stuck with. And finally, there's no such thing as a wrong character, or there's just maybe the wrong game for your character, which is why you need to find out. If you're going to bring that character to a table, you need to make sure the table is okay with that character. Or maybe I'm completely fucking wrong. I don't know. It's early and I haven't had caffeine. I am your grumpy guide to all things gaming. If you appreciate this content and want to see more, comment down below. If, on the other hand, you're thinking of unsubscribing because you do not appreciate this content, let me know why by commenting down below. If you haven't subscribed yet, please take a moment to subscribe. It helps you know what's going on with the OGGM adventures, and it helps me know what direction you want to take the vlog in 2021. I will talk to you later. Bah humbug.